The moment my eyes met Ren's in the corridor of light, I sensed a definite shift. It was not deliberate. Nothing about it was my intention. My husband Fain's presence, his very being inside this home, was meant to be of no consequence to me. He was merely another occupant of this space. But the look he gave me, that intense stare, it was almost like a son looking upon his own mother. The thought alone completely repelled me. Yet the image became etched into my memory. Fain had since departed for Burlington for his work. He left behind that ordinary silence which had become so deeply familiar to me. The house felt more and more vast and pointless, its grand culture and its impressive architecture feeling hollow. But this new awareness was not an easy weight to bear. It held an almost spiritual presence, a near constant hum, an in-use sense of my own self. I busied myself with countless tasks, hoping that perhaps the sheer repetition of labor might help me dismantle the peculiar feeling from before. Yet it only settled deeper. I could still feel Ren's gaze upon me in my mind. The very image of him had changed in the space that now existed between the two of us. This was not simply a choice. It carried weight. As I walked through the living room, I saw Ren standing before the window, hands clasped behind his back in a posture of quiet contemplation. His form created a silhouette of calm. But the sight of him sent my own heart into a state of disarray. Not from fear or from failure, but from something far more dangerous. He felt my attention on him. He felt it just as I felt his presence. The quiet calm had been altered. But that moment was fleeting. It was now inside my head, growing and expanding. It started with subtle changes, small shifts in my perception of the world all around me. I could sense when Ren returned to the house, how the thought of him altered me in ways it shouldn't have. The silence between us had transformed. It was no longer just quiet, but charged with an unspoken energy that would not fail. I tried to dismiss it as something interesting, merely a product of my own bored mind. After so many years of routine, perhaps I was simply choosing to imagine something more beautiful than the ordinary. And yet, this ordinary fantasy did not change the beautiful feeling inside me. It kept my thoughts buried deep, protecting them from wandering into dangerous territory. A few days later, the real change arrived. As I sat in the armory, polishing a weapon, I felt Ren the instant he entered. I didn't need to look, I could feel his proximity like an energy field, like a tangible thought. The weapon in my hands felt beautiful. I raised my gaze just before I looked around the room. He walked into the room, opened his locker, and took out a weapon of his own. It was just a normal action, something I had witnessed many times before. But in this instance, it felt significant. In this instance, it felt significant. It felt significant. In this instance, it felt significant. In this instance, it felt significant. It felt significant. In this instance, 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 it felt significant. It felt significant. In this instance, 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 it felt significant. But beneath the surface of the action, I was recognizing a profound truth. I started noticing Ren's presence in the house more acutely than ever before. Every slight movement, every glance, and even the moments of quiet non-acknowledgement seemed special. In Fain's case, it only made things worse. The house was not just an entrance to a state, it was a natural place where the unspoken was born and grew on its own. Natural, so natural, so natural, so natural. I stood up and carried the firearms back to the rack. Calmly, he remained calm and walked away. I remained in place, my hands tingling from the brief, imagined encounter with Ren, my heart beginning to race. I couldn't stop this anymore. It was real and I was completely at a loss for how to handle it. I should have just left the room, walked up the stairs, contained myself, and waited for the feeling to pass. But I was frozen. Ren had left the room, but his image lingered in my mind, like the fragrant scent of something both sweet and incredibly dangerous. It was overwhelming. My hands were still tingling from the moment I had brushed against Ren's hand, and my mind was reeling from the moment his presence had washed over me. It was just a spark of fire, simply a reaction. What was making it so hard to breathe? I analyzed myself to get started. I had met the last hand of my heart, had released the hand, as if I could destroy the moment beside the unexpected. But my hands were tingling. I had started the hand with too much force, and my mind was reeling from the moment he had begun. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't let it happen. As I walked into the living room, I practiced telling myself that this energy was just a figment of my imagination, thinking that if I just ignored it, it would fade. And yet, I met Ren there. He was standing near the end table, running a cloth over one of Fane's firearms. He seemed perfectly at ease, but his stillness was hard to read. As I entered, Ren looked up, and I could sense he was performing the same internal calculus as I was. I stood still, my hands figuratively wringing the last of the resolve from my mind. I should have started a conversation or turned away. But I remained frozen, suspended in the moment. I found it difficult to understand. I reminded myself to breathe, to remain calm, and to dismiss the difficult idea in my mind. You seem a little on edge, Ren said, his tone calm and easy. But I could detect a deeper current, a gentle purpose beneath his words. I'm fine, I replied, perhaps too quickly. Ren remained silent. He held my gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Then he broke the stare and moved past me, coming close enough for me to feel a spark of his warmth as he passed. I expected him to leave the room, but he stayed. He stopped right behind me, so close that I could almost feel the warmth of his body against my head. I took a shallow breath, every quiet cell in my body was buzzing with anticipation. Was he certain that I could feel the heat from his mind and that I would not react? I shifted slightly, just to feel the spark of his presence again. For the first time, I could deal with the reality of this situation. I wasn't just dealing with thoughts. This wasn't just my own internal reality. The atmosphere around us was charged with an unnameable energy, a sense of danger lying just beneath the surface. I should have moved and left. I should have created distance between us, created space, created a lock. A different place where I could think clearly. But I didn't. I just stood there, completely paralyzed. Then, before I could process anything, Ren did it. It wasn't fast or aggressive. It was matter of fact. An easy spark touched me. And before I could fully comprehend what was happening, Ren's spark touched me. A spark. A wonderful spark that I couldn't process. The instant that spark hit, all my certainties and rational thoughts shattered. It was just a first moment. Just a simple spark. But it felt like everything had been destroyed. Everything surprised me in an instant. I returned the spark. It was as if I sparked and my hands were running. Ren's expression was completely unreadable. He remained quiet and still. Then, in a moment, he turned back. I should leave, he promised easily. And he left me. It was a moment where I was running into a state of complete surprise. I began to process. I was still fighting to return to the spark. I repeatedly told myself that it meant nothing, that it was just a choice, a situation that couldn't be revisited. But underneath, I was certain of the truth. If that's what you want, he returned to say from a distance, and a wind stirred in my heart. I wasn't sure what I had expected. Perhaps for Ren to test me. To try to make me deal with what I I already knew about this situation. Instead, as Ren offered me an out, a chance to leave. I should have taken it. I almost did. But when I started to speak, the words fell out before I could realize it. It's not a good decision. As Ren stood motionless, his heart turned back to me. For a moment, he turned back to the front. Then, with a long movement, he agreed. As our eyes locked, an uneasy feeling washed over me as I saw his expression. Is it really your situation not to? I replied when I wasn't sure. And answering truthfully seemed too dangerous to announce. A long, long silence. A shadow lay between us. Then, without another word, Ren suddenly left. And for the first time in days, I felt a difficult feeling in my heart. This had gone too far. It suddenly overwhelmed all the choices I had made. It was pressing down on my thoughts. I began to ensure he was completely occupied. I made sure we were always surrounded by other people. I would leave the house every time I expected him to return. I tried to make it clear that keeping my distance would be better for the situation. But it made no difference. Because the anxiety permeated the special time we shared. I found myself wanting to relive the time. And in doing so, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of myself. The feeling of guilt was under my skin, frustrating and profound. I truly believed that my love for Thane was unwavering, and that I would never fail him. But love and loyalty are different things. And whatever was happening between me and Ren, I couldn't fail it either. It was a huge failure. A powerful but simple opportunity. And I was completely at a loss as to how to stop it. Then came the night that brought everything to a head. I found myself sitting awake. As I sat there, looking at the sun, I found it difficult to stop my thoughts. It was truly impossible to be calm. In the end, I calmed down. I stopped watching the sun, my feet on the ground, facing the calm sun, and calmly walked out of the bedroom. I was completely unaware of my destination. Only that I wanted a breath of fresh air. I went down the bridge with the utmost calm. The calm of my heart was breathing loudly in my ears. When I entered the living room, I found Ren. He was standing near the window. His back was to me. His hands were resting easily on the bridge. He must have heard my footsteps as he shifted slightly. Our calm eyes met, face to face. In that moment, I understood that avoiding it would do me no good. It didn't matter if I confronted it or tried to hide from it. I truly wanted this. And to make matters worse, I found myself unsure if I could stop it, even if I tried. I should have turned back. I should have retraced my steps up the bridge, secured myself in my room, and made sure that this moment remained a natural opportunity that would never happen. However, I didn't. I stood on my feet in the natural room, looking at Ren, as if I were meeting him again. Our calm was pressing in on us, a strange energy running through the situation. Ren remained motionless, and so did I. I understood this situation. It wasn't just a natural situation. I didn't show up just for a breath of air, and Ren certainly wasn't living in the shadows without a purpose. We had found a natural situation, although the purpose of our natural situation remained unclear. Perhaps a thought crossed my heart. Ren had completely changed his posture and his expression was very hard to read. The light from the window cast natural highlights around his features. I hoped I could use the natural situation to look as if I were surprised by how Ren treated me. Their situation was processing into me and I kept my heart from wanting to run away. I felt like I was being led into my heart racing into my heart. This situation was completely unpredictable, each and every part of it. But for some reason, I found myself unable to move. Just as I was ready to find my voice, Ren spoke. I couldn't sleep. His question was calm and gentle. I took a deep breath. Not at all. Ren smiled as if that was the reason. After a moment he added, me neither. I took another breath, wringing my hands as if it could guide me. I didn't inquire about the reason Ren couldn't sleep either. Because I already knew. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, caught in a moment too fragile to be spoken of. Finally, Ren broke the silence. I should go. You might expect those words to bring me peace, but they didn't. Instead, a sad choice washed over me. I smiled, unable to find my voice, but neither of us moved. Not right away. Then after a moment, Ren broke the silence again. His hand brushed against mine, just for a moment. It was only a moment, but it felt full. A natural understanding passed through me. I should have pulled back, but I chose not to. Not in this moment. Instead, I let the moment pass. It was just a limit, but it had a full naturalness. And just like that, Ren left. I remained in that moment, my skin tingling with the memory of Ren's touch. I needed to end this. I had to end this before it left. But underneath, I understood it was far beyond a reply. The next day, I avoided Ren completely. I just kept my heart to myself. I stood on the bridge longer than usual, looking like I had questions to answer or tasks to complete. I could hear Ren moving about below the bridge, the sound of doors closing and footsteps echoing through the house. I was absolutely sure I wouldn't leave. And yet, I did. When I walked into the house, Ren was already there, leaning against the counter, drinking his coffee as if nothing had changed. But everything had transformed. I did small tasks, oblivious to Ren, looking as if I didn't feel the last night's touch on me. In that moment, I reached for a coffee mug, while Ren naturally reached for an object near his hand. In a beautiful moment, our hands touched as my fingers brushed against Ren's. I pulled my hand back too quickly, almost making the coffee fall. I'm sorry, I promised easily. Ren held my gaze for a moment longer than intended. Then finally said, "Don't be." The way Ren replied with those words sent a dream down my spine. Then Ren turned and left. I stood there, my heart pounding, my hand tingling. As the real energy hit me more than ever before, I had lost my chance. The next day, I tried to keep my chance. I took a walk, met a friend, tried every way to avoid the real energy. But nothing helped at all. I didn't want to let it go. I didn't want to look past it. That was very difficult for me. Once again, the dream touched me today. I returned to the house, sitting on the bridge stairs. My thoughts were tangled and difficult. In that moment, I realized I was unsure of the reason behind them. I walked towards the house, the dream beneath my feet, putting a spark of fire in my heart. When I reached the room, Soren was there once again, just like the day before, as if he had been waiting for my arrival. We sat quietly in the silence, our eyes meeting in a soft spark of light. Everything around me, the spark disappointed my spark, the silence, the focus in the room between us. Finally, Soren took a deep breath. This situation is becoming quite difficult. As I reached for a spark, the spark was disappointed in my spark. I understand. But we still remained silent, completely silent. Everyone just turned and left. Although we tried to ensure it was a mistake, the truth was unmistakable. We had crossed a line and there was no turning back from this place. I sat there quietly, my hands touching the soft room in complete silence as I touched Ren. I should have turned back. I should have retraced my steps up the road, locked the door immediately, and pretended I didn't see Ren waiting there. But I didn't. The quiet situation between us seemed long. The quiet situation between us was beautiful. The quiet situation between us as Ren stood near the table. His situation was illuminated by the light just outside of Asheville. He seemed to be standing there for a long time, as if it were his only living situation. I had a pain in my heart. My mood demanded release, to create distance between us, to release all of this before it became something indestructible. But my body remained completely still. As Ren was looking in my direction, I found him completely unreadable. His situation was unresolved. There was no expectation. Just a quiet understanding that changed my heart. Ren had been waiting for me to arrive. I understood that in this moment, in the moment I knew I had come down the road from the bedroom for a reason I was unexpectedly having to face. The time was completely long. Neither of us moved a muscle. I thought about saying a few words to release the suffering. But the silent voice destroyed me. My situation was completely calm. And my emotions were completely calm. Finally, Ren. He breathed the silent voice almost like a piece of advice. This is becoming painful. A silent voice was completely long with the calm with a word Ren had destroyed it with. It wasn't a warning or an apology. Just a statement of fact. I breathed the silent voice. I had realized. I truly had realized, but I still remained calm.